I playfully joked about his round face shape on a pre-party with our friends, then this happened. Hey, it's me, Sarah. So listen, to be perfectly honest, I never dreamt of being in this position to share my story with you. You recall how sometimes you are just spending time with your partner and next moment something snaps and blows over? Well, that is pretty much what happened in my case, and now it is all that I can think of. So here's how it all started. A few weeks ago, we were at this pre-party with some of my closest pals. I think you know, the relaxed type of mood with alcohol and just so much fun. It was going smoothly as a meeting until I made a joke. It seems something like one of those jokes you think is not going to resonate somewhere you wouldn't expect. Yeah, well, it did. As I said, not in the way I anticipated. I was standing there with my boyfriend, Chris. We've been together for almost 3 years now. I'm not going to lie, he's not the typical guy I would have gone for in the past. He's not a gym rat, doesn't have that chiseled jawline look that seems to get everyone's attention. But you know what? He's got this vibe like the dependable, down-to-earth type. And honestly, that's what made me fall for him. He has this round face though, cute in a way, but I don't think this can be referred to as model material in any way. And here we were, fooling around and being silly with friends, and I simply couldn't keep it to myself. I told him, "Babe, you've got a big round face," or something to that effect, and everybody giggled. I didn't think much of it, but if I could turn back the clock now, I wish I did that. So we're at this pre-party, right? It's one of those nights where everyone's just letting loose, grabbing a drink and catching up. Nothing too crazy, just a chill vibe with a bunch of friends. We're all sitting in the living room laughing at some dumb story my friend Jenna told about her boss at work. The music's playing in the background, and there's that familiar buzz of a Friday night, the kind where you know everyone's about to have a good time. Then Chris, my boyfriend, started laughing and joined the guys making jokes and all the other guys. You know, typical man's conversation discussing sports, teasing one another. He is quite a tall man and can crack jokes on himself, something I find very interesting. But then I had this thought. We have been together for a while now. You know, sometimes you want to leave a little impression on your partner in a silly way. So, without overthinking it, I glanced over at him and said, "You look like a teddy bear, babe. With that round face, you look like you could be shelved in a kid's bedroom." The room burst out laughing. It was a joke, a playful little jab that everyone took in stride. But right after I said it, I noticed something. Chris laughed too, but it felt like a forced laugh. Like, just for a second, I saw this weird little flicker in his eyes. He brushed it off though, grabbed his drink, and joined in on the laughter. But something about his reaction didn't sit right with me. I have known Chris for quite some time now. I can tell that something isn't right. I believe he must not have found it funny at all because all of us around him were laughing our heads off. However, the atmosphere was pleasant, and that was why we carried on. Hearing him talk like that made me smile though. But at the same time, I couldn't escape the memories of when he blushed from getting conscious about his figure. After the preparty, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The joke had seemed harmless at the moment, but now it felt like I had crossed a line. Chris hadn't said much about it afterward, but I could tell he was still hurt. There were these small things like how he stopped being as playful with me, or how he seemed a little distant. It wasn't anything huge, but it was enough to make me question things. And I started to wonder if I'd been blind to how much his insecurities had been affecting him. Maybe it wasn't just about that one joke, but all the times before when I had brushed off his feelings. Actually, the relationship in between had not been too good for quite some time now. We fell into a definite rhythm, and I began to realize just how sometimes we took our relationship for granted, or rather, just how little affection was involved. Chris was too engrossed in his job, and based on the way we were together, I was the one who was always carrying the emotional burden. I was always the one who pursued my partner. It was me who called, him who arranged the meeting, and me who tried to reignite the flame. But over the past few weeks, I had gotten the impression that all the effort belongs to me alone. Perhaps he had never been so committed to the relationship as I did. Then, one evening, everything changed. I went out with some friends to a local bar, trying to get my mind off the tension with Chris. I wasn't expecting anything. I just wanted to relax and have fun, But then this guy Mark, I think his name, started talking to me. At first it was casual, just a few laughs here and there, but then he started complimenting me, making me feel like I was the only person in the room. He noticed the little things, like how I laughed, or how my eyes lit up when I talked about my job. For the first time in a while, I felt seen. I felt desired. That, and I knew what I was doing wasn't right, even if getting by meant looking that way. I shouldn't be receiving this type of attention. But damn, it felt so good to be admired again. It is such a basic human desire to feel wanted and appreciated, something I hadn't felt for months. I am such a guilty person, and I could not resist that feeling inside me, that pull to succumb to it. But there was Chris, still in his home, probably fuming at me for making a joke out of a very sensitive issue to him. I felt so torn. And yet, on the other side of the coin, I knew cheating was wrong, that it would not help me in any way solve my challenges. On the other hand, it was comfortable in my denial, and the social pressure to keep it together was nothing in front of the desire to just feel good about myself again, to escape the emotional neglect I had been feeling. I didn't expect it to happen. One minute we were laughing at some dumb joke Mark had made, and the next I was in his arms. It wasn't planned, and I didn't go to the bar looking for trouble. But when he leaned in, when I felt his breath on my skin and his lips brush against mine, I couldn't stop myself. The kiss was slow at first, soft, almost hesitant. But then something clicked. It felt good, it felt right in the moment, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel invisible. Mark was loving, in a way Chris said he hadn't been attentive enough sexually lately. His touch was deliberate. There was no confusion or multitasking going on. I knew that he was really hearing what I was saying, observing my reaction even to him. And damn, it felt like all the things I've been deprived of, attention, affection, even just wanting me back, came rushing to me. However, the moment I pulled away, I had to face the real world. I stood there, stunned, feeling this rush of guilt wash over me. I knew what I had just done wasn't right. It wasn't just a slip-up or some harmless flirtation. It was an affair, plain and simple. And even though I had justified it in my head, the emotional distance from Chris, the fact that I felt neglected and unloved, I couldn't ignore the truth. What I had just done was a betrayal. Well, I kept on telling myself that it is okay, because it was just one time only. And what did that mean? It meant nothing, right? This is not to say that I was in love with Mark or anything like that, for Christ's sake. But deep down, I knew better. I was aware that this was not about that kiss. It was about all the things that had been building up for months. The loneliness, the emotional baggage, and that hash to find the time when I decided to let someone else make me feel good about myself. I could almost taste the salty tang of shame on the back of my throat, but this thrill that snaked through me was not unpleasant. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I thought I could keep it under wraps, keep it a mistake, something I'd brush off and forget. But the truth has a way of finding its way to the surface, even when you try to hide it. And that's exactly what happened. It began when I realized that things are not the same with Chris anymore. At first, it was subtle. He appeared indifferent, preoccupied. But then I got the message opening on his phone. It wasn't me. It wasn't even Mark. It was a group chat with some friends, and there was a random person in the middle of the chat I had never seen before. A text, a screenshot with me and Mark. They had snapped our picture at the bar a little before the kiss. The person had even captioned it with a question. "What's going on here?" My heart dropped. I didn't know how or why he'd seen it, but I knew right away that I was caught. There was no hiding this anymore. One day, Chris decided to have it out with me. I was able to see the feeling of being rejected etched on his face, the confusion, and yes, the rage. He came into the room and instead of uttering any word, pointed at the phone. "What's this?" he asked, his voice cold. I froze. The guilt hit me like a punch to the gut. I tried to explain, to brush it off, but the words got stuck in my throat. "Chris, it's not what you think," I started, but I could tell from the way his eyes were narrowed, the way his jaw clenched, that he didn't want to hear it. I still vividly remember some of the struggles we engaged in, the comments that came from either side. "It's exactly what I think," he retorted, voice going up. You cheated on me. And after all that, after a stupid joke that flies freely like a butterfly, you stab me in the back like this? I wanted to say something to make him understand, to make it feel like it was just a momentary lapse, but I knew it wasn't. It wasn't just about the kiss. It wasn't even just about Mark. It was about everything we had been avoiding, everything that had been building up between us for months. But before I could speak again, he cut me off. You think I didn't hear it? He went on, emotion thick in his voice. Pre-party joke which says I have the world's scariest face, they should crucify me. You know how much that hurt me? I've always been ashamed of my face, always been scared of it, but I never expected it from you. I started believing you are the only person that understands me. But you made it a joke. You treated me like I was not worth your time, like the stupid joke I was. And now this betrayal? It's too much. His words hit harder than I expected. I thought I had just been messing around, teasing him like we always did. I didn't think it would have the kind of impact it clearly did. But as he stood there shaking with anger and pain, I realized just how deeply I had wounded him. The joke wasn't just a comment, it was the spark that lit the fire, the thing that exposed all the cracks we had been ignoring. You don't get it, do you? Chris went on, his voice cracking. You have been nothing but good to me, and this is what I get in reply. And after all this, you go and embarrass me in front of some man or something like that? It is almost like you do not even see me anymore. It is almost like I don't exist to you anymore. The words stung. It wasn't just about the affair anymore, it was about the years we had spent together, the trust that had been broken in one night. And as the argument escalated, the pain in his eyes was impossible to ignore. I attempted to argue, to tell them it wasn't like this, that I was angry and sad as well. Anyhow, I could never seem to say the right thing. It was never enough, and it could never be right. What happened between us was too massive for either of us to bear the brunt of betrayal. You know what? Chris snapped, his voice now a mix of anger and heartbreak. I can't do this. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, who doesn't care enough to even think before they act. And just like that, everything begins to fall apart. The argument lasted what seemed like hours as each sentence became a strike, each passing second a punch to the stomach of our previous selves. At the end of it, there is no more to be said, no more words to be exchanged. It was a done deal and nothing could be done about it. It's hard to even put into words how much things changed after that night. What started as a lighthearted joke, something that was supposed to be funny, turned into something so much bigger. I keep replaying everything in my head, asking myself if I could have done things differently if I pushed him too far, or if this was just the inevitable outcome of a relationship that had already been falling apart. I can't seem to stop thinking about the mistake I made, and now all I can feel is the weight of it. It wasn't only the affair, the joke, the heartbreak, it was all that which led up to it. The things we never paid attention to, the words never said, the times both of us just backed down. This makes me ask myself if I was looking for a reason to ruin it, if things were no longer as appealing to me, and this was just what pushed me over the edge. Maybe I'd been unhappy for longer than I realized. Maybe the joke was just a reflection of everything that had been simmering under the surface the way Chris had pulled away over the last few months. How he'd started acting distant, how we stopped communicating the way we used to. I tried to ignore it. I convinced myself that everything was fine. But now I can see how I used that one moment, that one comment, as an excuse to justify my actions. I'm stuck between two choices, fix it or walk away. And neither feels right. I feel so guilty. It is with me 24/7, but I can't help having a part of me that still wants the relationship we had. This can hardly be done, especially when you have spent quite some time with the person you once believed you would spend the rest of your life with. But the fear of losing him has been very real, and despite the fact that at times it seems like he is already gone, there is this fear of releasing him. But in my mind, I know this is not the case anymore. The bond we had, it's cracked, and I can't just erase what I did. Every time I think about how I've hurt him, I feel sick to my stomach. I crossed a line that I can't take back, no matter how much I want to fix it. It's one thing to hurt someone unintentionally, but when you know you've caused the damage, the weight is unbearable. I'm not sure if we can come back from this or if I even deserve to. At the moment, I found myself in this uncomfortable position of wanting to set things right, and yet doubting if it's possible already. The question now is, can we fix this? Can we rebuild what's been broken, or is it too late? I want to believe that things can be repaired, that we can work through the pain, but part of me knows that might be wishful thinking. Chris isn't just hurt by the affair, he's hurt by me, by the fact that I broke his trust, by the fact that I didn't value him the way he deserved. How much I may want to mend things right now, there is a part of me that almost feels that it was for the better that we are no longer together. I have always thought that if two people are in love, then it does not matter what obstacles they have to face in a relationship, they will get through it. It sounded great in theory, but right now I didn't know what to do. I'm still sitting with the mess I've created. Chris hasn't called, hasn't texted. I don't know if he's waiting for me to make a move or if he's already made his decision. He walked out that night and I haven't seen him since. I keep wondering if he'll come back, but deep down, I know that might be asking for too much. It's hard to be honest with yourself when you know you've messed up, but I have to admit that this is on me. The joke, the affair, the way I tried to justify it all was me. And now I'm stuck trying to figure out if there's a way to undo what's been done. I'm left with nothing but questions and regret, and I don't know where to go from here. The only thing I know for sure is that I can't change the past. I can't take back the hurt I caused. I can't undo the betrayal. But I have to figure out what comes next. And right now, I'm not sure if that's with Chris or without him. Update. Looking back, it's hard not to wonder how everything spiraled out of control. What started as a simple, playful joke about my boyfriend's round face turned into something far more complicated. I never thought a few words could cause so much damage, but here I am facing the consequences of my actions, trying to make sense of it all. It's easy to think that words don't mean much, that joking around is harmless. But in a relationship, words can be weapons and they can leave scars. I know now that what I said that night wasn't just a joke. It was a reflection of the tension between us, something I had ignored or brushed off for months. We had our issues, our unspoken resentments, and that joke? It wasn't a one-off comment. It was the tip of the iceberg, a small thing that exposed a bigger problem. And it wasn't just about the joke. It was about the emotional distance, the insecurities, and the way we stopped communicating. And I've learned the hard way that sometimes we say things we don't mean, but once those words leave your mouth, they can't be taken back. What I thought would be a funny moment ended up being a moment of deep hurt, something that damaged my boyfriend's trust in me and worse, my own trust in myself. So I want to leave you with this. Think before you speak. Words can be playful, yes, but they can also hurt in ways we don't always see coming. In relationships, we need to be more mindful of each other's vulnerabilities, even when we think it's all in good fun. The smallest comment can trigger something much bigger, and suddenly, the situation is no longer under our control. And this is where I find myself now standing in the mess of what's happened, trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. I don't know if I'll be able to fix what's broken or if the damage is too much to repair. But what I do know is that I've learned a valuable lesson, the importance of respect, understanding, and communication in a relationship, and that sometimes redemption doesn't come quickly. It's earned over time through actions, not just words. So I leave you with this. Take a moment to think before you make that joke, before you act on impulse, because the consequences might be more than you expect. For me, I'm still figuring it all out, but I know one thing for sure. I'll never underestimate the power of my words again.